I like going hunting, just me, my hound, and my gun. Chasing them deer, rabbit, and squirrel, now that's my kind of fun. I like going fishing too, I'll go on any whim, looking for the big bass, the crappie, and the brim. Just give me a wide open field to walk through. Give me an ocean so deep. I want to ride the longest river in the world, or maybe climb the highest mountain peak. Like going down to the fishing hole, my buddies and me and my old cane pole, bait them hooks and wet them lines. It's the life I love so fine. It's almost supper time, you'd think the world was mine.
And now for today's outdoor adventure, here's Archie Phillips.
Folks, I got a show today that's real personal to me as well as every other hunter I know. And it's a show on the right to keep and bear arms. You know, this country, we say we're a modern country, and that, you know, there's those that would have us have our guns abolished if they had their way, and the only folks that would be running around the country with guns would be the criminals that's got them now, today. And when our country was founded, they came over here, and you know, a lot of times these lawyers get involved in talking about our Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms, and they want to play with some of the words in there like the militia, this, that, and the other. But that thing plainly says the right of the people, that's us individually, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And there's a very good reason for that. Every despot in the world, from the beginning of time, the first thing he did was disarm the population. And they had the big standing armies that they had where they would overrun people. But when this country was founded, it's unusual how this country was founded. When they put that Second Amendment in there, meaning that every man in his home could keep and bear arms without the government messing with him, because then he was able to defend his home against any intrusion, and also he would be skilled at using that guns. Those first colonists had to have a working military gun and all the accoutrements that went with it, so that when they got a call from the militia or the people that called them in and pressed them into action, they were ready, they knew how to use the guns. And incidentally, the two top heroes in World War I and World War II were Sergeant Alvin York, who was an old country boy that knew how to shoot, and Audie Murphy, a country boy that knew how to shoot. So the key to this thing is that citizens and law-abiding citizens should never have their right infringed by any government entity. And we've got a group of people here with us today, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, so we hope you enjoy the show. Now, you know, Guy, we've been enjoying our hunting out here, and we got a good bit yet to do. But you know, them old boys that floated over here from over in England wrote that Constitution, that Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, right to keep and bear arms. You know, they feared standing armies. And, you know, a lot of folks get this word militia mixed up. They think that's a big army. Militia, when they wrote that thing, meant every able-bodied man from 16 to 60 to serve their country if needed, and they had to furnish their own guns. That's the thing about it. It wasn't a matter of joining something. They was already there as long as they're law-abiding citizens.
Well, we never would have won the Revolutionary War if it hadn't been for good squirrel hunters.
That's right.
And won our freedom as a result of it. And you just look at all the nations who have taken guns away from their citizens, and you see the nations who get in trouble. And so the right to bear arms is one of the most precious things we have. We certainly need to protect it.
It certainly is. And, you know, and that enables us to, most people raise their kids up hunting, they teach them gun safety and that kind of stuff. But, you know, like I tell some folks, if you don't have the right to keep and bear arms, your other freedoms, that's the first thing they do in these tyranny countries, just come out there, confiscate the guns, and then to go do whatever. You lose your freedom of the press, and you lose all your other freedoms. Freedom to worship. Look what they've done in Russia. You couldn't even worship over there.
Well, not only that, look what happened in China, which would not have happened had it been a nation that had arms. I think that's one reason that we've always been so strong. Other nations knew that all of our citizens had arms. America would be a hard country to overrun.
You know, if they dropped right here in the middle of the United States and decided it's going to take us, we'd have a militia in every county, every little town. So that wouldn't be a very good thing for them to do. And they know these things too, don't they?
That's right. Exactly right.
Had my old buddy down there, Charlie Price down at Hattiesburg, Big Buck. He said, he said, when the founders of our Constitution got together, he said they was just like a bunch of regular fellers. He said they got in this room, and he said, all right, and we're all over here and we don't like what we had. Let's decide what we want to do. And one of them raised his hand. He said, now that first thing we want to do, they got to quit killing us for believing in God the way we want to. Number one, freedom of religion. They got to quit that. This other old boy raised his hand. Hey, they got to quit kicking us around out there too. He says, I want something that'll shoot. And I don't want nobody running over me, because I'm going to be protected. And they wrote in there, the right to keep and bear arms, Second Amendment, shall not be infringed. Some of these folks get messed up about this militia business. Tell me from a legal point of view what them folks are talking about in your opinion.
Well, the militia, not only in my opinion, but recently the Supreme Court has come out with a decision that defines what we the people are. And the people is not defined as a group, the people is defined as a single individual. And that is the way the Constitution was defined. It defines the people as an individual person because each of us have individual rights. That same right that's provided for in the Fifth Amendment to that Bill of Rights, the right against self-incrimination, also is the we the people that applies under the Second Amendment. And those are individual rights and not rights, corporate rights, as some people say. And I think the Supreme Court has finally made that very clear as to what they mean.
Well, a lot of people don't understand this thing about militia and deputy. What happened is, when you had some bad guys running around, the farmers couldn't all stay up at night, and hoping that he'd come around and get him. So they said, look, what we're going to do, we're going to all pool our money, and we're going to delegate to the police and the sheriff the right to protect it. But we're not relinquishing that right, we're just delegating it. So he gets out there and he patrols around, and while we sleep, we hire him to do that, don't we, Warren?
Absolutely.
Now, if we can't hire enough police if crime gets too bad. So what we do is we say, look, you find some more good guys, and if you get in trouble, you deputize these guys. Now, if it gets bigger than that bunch, you just call all of us law-abiding citizens, and you make up a posse, like they used to do in the Old West, of law-abiding citizens. That is your militia, the one man, the sheriff, his deputies, all. And then if it got too bad, you get two counties together. First thing you know, you got the whole state together if you got a problem. And then if it's a real big problem, you get the whole country together, and you call that an army. So it wasn't no mystery back in them days. You know what I'm talking about? They had that thing figured out real good, best I could tell. But Judge, we appreciate you helping us out, and we appreciate your interpretation.
Arch, I got to throw one thing in.
Throw one on me.
If any of your listening or viewing audience here are members of the American Civil Liberty Union and the lawyers that try to take our guns away, I wonder how they're going to feel when they see the judge if they walk into his courtroom.
Well, they're going to be in for trouble. That's all I got to say.
Well, they will feel safe because I will abide by the law and protect the Constitution. But the Constitution says we have individual rights as well as collective rights, and those rights give us each a right to protect ourselves, because I've been in this business long enough that I know that the police cannot protect everyone. We have to protect ourselves, and that Constitution gives us that right to do so.
So there's more crime stopped by the individual armed citizen than all the polices in this country combined. Well, folks, this is a resolution of the House of Representatives in Alabama. It's called HJR 79, Act number 61, by Mr. Jack Biddle here from Gardendale, Alabama. This is the Alabama's right to keep and bear arms resolution passed by the House and Senate. Jack, we want to thank you, buddy.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your efforts. Now,
yes, sir.
And for NRA, Jack, thank you very much, too.
Just happy to do it.
Now, Warren, he done us another favor. Tell us about that other bill you got through there.
I passed a bill, the last bill that I passed pertaining to firearms says that no municipality in the state of Alabama can enact any laws pertaining to the ownership, possession, or purchase of a handgun.
Preemption.
Right. So it keeps the purchase of handguns and the carrying of handguns in the hands of the legislature, who are elected by all of the people in the state, which I just feel a little better with.
Well, Jack, on behalf of our almost 3 million members nationwide, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's a great example. I hope the other 49 states will follow.
I hope so, too.
Welcome back to Listen to the Eagle. We got a very special guest for all you hunters and fishermen across the South, and that's Mr. Charleston Heston. And Charleston, it's so good to have you in Mississippi.
Well, it's nice to borrow your audience today.
And I'd like for you to meet my daughter, Carla.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and an honor, and we welcome you to Mississippi.
Well, it's good to be back.
First of all, Mr. Heston, we'd like to ask you about the 50 million folks that hunt and fish. They're very concerned about the Second Amendment, and I know the NRA has a lot of members, but I don't feel like personally that we've gotten enough of the hunters across this United States of America, and it's very threatening for them and their rights to hunt with a gun because they need the gun.
Well, that's, of course, the main function of the NRA is to protect the Second Amendment, which is under increasing challenge from the media and people like Sarah Brady and so on. But I'm confident that we're going to be able to hold the line. I was raised in hunting country. I've used guns all my life, and I think the popular perception in the media is that a majority of the American people are in favor of gun control. It's really not true. The polls that are taken indicate just the contrary. And of course, I like to feel that the NRA's efforts are crucial, and of course our support in both the Senate and the House, and governorships across the country. I think the idea that anything close to a majority of the American people are in favor of gun control is simply mistaken.
I just returned from New Mexico, and they seem to feel the same way as Mississippi. What part of the United States are we having the most problem in? Metropolitan areas?
Well, certainly California, now that we have a Democratic governor, and two strongly liberal, though grievously misinformed senators, Feinstein and Boxer, but even there, even in California, the rights of gun users, hunters, are still protected. And of course, New York and Washington, that's another thing. But the efforts, I think, of the NRA have been successful. For example, our Eddie Eagle program, whose sole purpose, we spend about $1 million a year on it. Its sole purpose is to instruct kids who absolutely have to learn. There's a certain time when you can be taught to use a firearm. But before that, the Eddie Eagle slogan is, if you see a gun, don't touch it, leave the room, call an adult. And we've spent more money than any other federal agency, any private group, any element in the federal government, and it's been very successful.
I'll let you talk to him about the Project Exile. You know, we were talking about that in women with guns, Carla.
Well, I just wanted to hit on something that you talked about, the children. I think it's so important that we teach our children about the out-of-doors. And I was fortunate enough that I grew up with my father, a hunter, and I was taught to use a gun at an early age and about the safety and the education of it.
But I bet you had the same experiences when my dad taught me to use a gun. He taught me the proper way to handle a firearm a long time before he let me shoot one.
That's exactly right. Exactly. And it's so important. And I think today, because of what we were talking about with the media and how they portray it, they've almost made it a controversial issue. And it's not.
The eye of the American people, it is not an issue.
It's not. And
the Second Amendment is alive and well.
It is. And I appreciate what you are doing for the Second Amendment.
And I want to say something. He's played biblical parts. The Bible stands up for what we're talking about. Am I not right? In that saying, with these animal activists, Mr. Heston, they are trying to use the Bible saying Jesus shouldn't have fished and all the biblical things. It stands up that man shall have dominion over the wild beast of the field. And they had a lot of wars. You know, the Bible says one day there's not going to be any more wars, but it doesn't say how many going to be between now and then.
It's going to be a long while. I don't think you and I are going to be around.
Well, we want to thank you so much for what you stand for.
A pleasure to borrow your audience.
Well, thank you.
And we can't let him go if he doesn't say, listen to the Eagle with Carla and Paul. Would you do that for us?
By all means, you must listen to the Eagle with Carla and Paul.
Paul, we appreciate you coming out with us on our Right to Keep and Bear Arms show, the NRA people and all. And I know you live just next state over.
Right across the
love to hunt, fish, and keep the right to freedom with our guns. And you got a little tune there you gonna sing?
Well, yeah, we got one that we did in Nashville. I'm gonna sing one about hunting for you in just a minute. But
you've been on that Grand Ole Opry and all that stuff.
Yeah, Raph, been on 10 and been on all of them. Yeah, been on every television, trying to promote what you're promoting, hunting and fishing. Of course, you know you can't go hunting if you don't have a gun. They trying to take the guns away. Man,
well, they try to sneak in on us everywhere. You know, they say they try to use assault when it's all these bad words is what they do to us.
Thank goodness for the NRA. That's all I can say.
I tell you, a man that hunts and don't belong to NRA, he ain't got no right to
You got to have a hunting license and NRA.
NRA, and then you go on and find something to hunt.
No, I want to tell you a little bit about the Right Arm of America before I sing the little song about hunting. It was our feeling several years ago, and Mr. Cassidy knows that we entertained at their national convention. And we put together, when I entertain, I do about 100 conventions a year, national and regional and statewide. I always try to put a song together that fits the group. And our feeling was that the gun is the right arm of America. It just stands to reason that it is. And the people that are condemning the gun and trying to take the guns away, the only reason, Archie, that they have the freedom to even do that is because of the gun. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, we are free because of the gun. Now, the Bible says one day there's not going to be any more wars. Doesn't say how many are going to be between now and then.
That's right.
Now, the late Teddy Roosevelt said, walk softly, but carry a big stick. And I think that's the reason, and it's good the things that we're seeing in the Soviet Union today, but I think the reason is because we've had the big stick. And I remember when I was little, if I had a big stick, nobody going to fool with me. Now, and I say that, unfortunately, that's the reason.
Now, that's the reason it took them Soviets 40 years to try to regain their freedom, because them stinking countries over in Europe disarmed everybody in sight. And the poor devil, you know that old movie, Dr. Zhivago, you remember seeing that?
Yeah, I remember Dr. Zhivago.
That was the most depressing movie, but the thing that really touched my soul, there these four guys are riding up on a horse, just four of them. And it was just this one doctor and his sweetheart. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember the sweetheart especially.
All right, well, you know, I'm sitting there thinking, now they gonna haul me off. If I had my old Model 12 and 7 shots of buckshot, I promise you I could get all four of them before the first one hit the ground. You understand what I'm saying?
I know.
Then they'd be hunting them four. You know what I mean? So it breaks my heart to see people that love freedom, and the first thing them tyrants do is take them guns away.
And this right here, in the right arm of America, is, as I said, the reason we have the freedom. And what we did with the song that you're going to put together with some video, I think, is that we took the gun and the good things. Everybody's showing the bad things the gun did. You know, I was with the brave Columbus when he discovered this great land. I was with the Washington at Valley Forge. I fired the shot, the first shot for freedom. And what we're doing with the song, we did in Nashville, we're taking people through the history. And then the last part of the song, if people will listen, they'll see we'll name the different types of gun. I was Colonel Coates, Smith & Wesson. I'm sometimes called Winchester. I was how the West was won. And it goes on and tell the good things about gun, and that's what we tried to do. And we did that for the NRA. I was with the brave Columbus when he discovered this great land. And when the Pilgrims landed, I was ever close at hand. I fired the shot heard round the world, that all men might be free. I thundered for old glory. I roared for liberty. And I was there with Washington in Valley Forge's bloody snow. At the shoulders of determined men, we overcame the foe. In the hands of volunteers, this time in New Orleans, we denied the crown again. We had no need for earthly kings. When Travis called, I answered, but the Alamo was lost. Then I returned with Houston, and we showed them who was boss. When brothers from the north and south began their bitter fray, 'twas not for me to choose a side, so I was blue and I was gray. In Dixieland I'll take my stand. Then again the challenge came, a challenge deeply felt, and I went down to San Juan Hill with Teddy Roosevelt. Then in 1917, the Yanks and I went over there to face the Kaiser's armies. And we whooped them fair and square.
I went again in 42 before all Europe fell to Hitler's rage and tyranny in the war they all called hell. And I was in the Philippines on the hip of General Mack. When the rising sun flew o'er our land, I helped to win it back. I was there on Pork Chop Hill, once again in Vietnam. Call me the right arm of America, but that is what I am. I'll go again when there's a need, and liberty the cause. I'll fight by any righteous man. I'll help protect his laws.
I'm the right arm of America.
I am Smith & Wesson, Colonel Colt and Remington. I'm often called Winchester. I'm how the West was won. Marlin, Sharps, and Browning. Stevens, Fox, and Ruger, too. Many are the brands I've worn. Those are just a few. On the battlefield or in the home, I'm your security. A tool of peace from freedom's forge. I'll help to keep you free. There are those who say I'm evil. They condemn me and they damn. Yet they are free to say I should be banned because of who I am. In the U.S. Constitution, Amendment number 2, you were given the absolute right to own me. The choice is up to you. I'm only what you make of me. I'll do what you want done. Treat me with my due respect. I am your nation's gun.
I'm the right arm of America. Homeland of the free.
Folks, we talked a good bit about hunting and the right of hunters to keep and bear arms, but remember, hunting didn't have anything to do with the Second Amendment. That amendment said the right to keep and bear arms, whether it be military or hunting weapons. Your military weapons are by far the greatest choice of your target shooters, which compose an awful lot of sport shooters. And whether it's the semi, and understand I said semi-automatic weapon, which the technology was developed in 1889, the semi-automatic weapon is also used for sport shooters. And many of the homeowners prefer just a pistol, just a revolver or an automatic pistol and all for the home protection. Remember, there's more crimes were deterred by the law-abiding citizen against a criminal than all the law enforcement put together in this country here. So the right to keep and bear arms is the most fundamental right. I personally think it should be number one ahead of freedom of the press and the other, because if you don't have the right to keep and bear arms to protect yourself, you can forget about freedom of the press and freedom of assembly and freedom not to have military people quartered in your home and those type things. And just remember this, our forefathers knew full well what they were doing when they wrote this article in there, and it ain't changed none. In fact, we've already turned the streets of the major cities over to the criminal, just like in the old days, the bad guys had the guns till the good guys got them and run them out of town. So in America today, it's not safe in major cities on their streets, and so if a law-abiding citizen doesn't have a deterrent or an equalizer, he's in a bad way in America today.
A tool of peace from freedom's forge. I'll help to keep you free. There are those who say I'm evil. They condemn me and they damn. Yet they are free to say I should be banned because of who I am. In the U.S. Constitution, Amendment number 2, you were given the absolute right to own me. The choice is up to you. I'm only what you make of me. I'll do what you want done. Treat me with my due respect. I am your nation's gun.
I'm the right arm of America, homeland of the free.
When autumn comes and the leaves fall down, when the wild goose calls and green turns brown, let the cold clear air nip your youngster's nose, blow his soft young hair, take him hunting, teach him how to tell a big buck's whistle and a bobcat's yell. The outdoor life, it's yours, it's free, and it's put there for you and put there for me. Hi, this is Paul Lott, inviting you to hunt with your son today so you don't have to hunt for him tomorrow.